Hello and welcome to PMCLounge.com. Today we are looking into the basics of cost management knowledge area. So this video should be your first video when you start to study about the cost management knowledge area. All right, without any further ado, let's get started. It is all about the money, honey. And if you see all projects, every project that you have ever worked on, it all boils down to money. All projects boil down to money. Why do I say so? Because if you had a bigger budget, let's say you had a bigger budget, what all could you do? You could get more people on the job. You could deliver early. You could deliver so much more. Of course, it all boils down to money. It all boils down to the budget that your project has. And that is why coming up with a budget for your project, that is one of the most important tasks of this knowledge area, the cost management knowledge area. So in this knowledge area, one of the most important output is the budget of the project. Now, let's look at where does this cost management knowledge area fit into the grand scheme of things, fits into the PGKA mapping or the process groups knowledge areas mapping. So this is the PGKA mapping. And as you can see, cost management knowledge area, here it is, project cost management. And this has 4 processes, 3 in planning and 1 in monitoring and controlling. By the way, we have already covered the other knowledge areas that you can see above cost management. Links to the playlist for these knowledge areas will be available in the description of this video. And by the way, if you are into reading, if you would rather read than watch a video on the basics of cost management, first link in the description is going to take you to our website pmclounge.com, where you'll find the related article in text and you don't have to go through the entire video. All right, let's zoom in on this. Let's zoom in on the processes of cost management knowledge area. So these are the processes of cost management. 3 processes in planning process group and 1 process in monitoring and controlling process group. You've got cost management, plan cost management, you've got estimate costs, determine budget, and then finally control costs. So seems like this is not a very heavy knowledge area, but when you start studying and when you understand the concepts of cost management, you realize that this is actually one of those knowledge areas which are going to take more time and require more time for your PMP preparation as compared to other knowledge areas. Stay tuned with us as we cover the cost management knowledge area and you'll understand what I'm saying. All right, now let's talk about the first process, the plan cost management process. So this is where you plan all the processes and methodologies that your project is going to use to perform cost management. Now, this will also give you a cost management plan, and this cost management plan is actually a subsidiary plan of your project management plan. So project management plan has several different subsidiary plans. One of them is cost management plan, and that is the key output of this process known as plan cost management. Typically, the first planning process in every knowledge area is going to give you as an output a subsidiary plan, which becomes an input of the entire project management plan. A quick reminder before we move ahead, if you're looking for PMP preparation book recommendations, head over to pmclounge.com/resources. That is where we have listed the best resources available for your PMP preparation. Now, let's talk about the other process, the second process in cost management knowledge area, which is estimate costs. And as the name goes, this is where you are going to figure out how much the project is going to cost. You're basically estimating the cost, right? Now, if you want to do so, if you want to estimate the cost of your entire project, you will have to start with estimating the cost for each activity of the project, right? You cannot give a ballpark figure for your project as a whole. You will have to estimate cost for each of your project activity. Now, when you do so, you need to have, when you do so, and when I say do so, I mean to say when you're estimating the cost for every single activity, you need to have two things. You need to have two things that you know in detail, and those are, number one is the work you're going to do as part of this activity, and the time it would take. So we are referring to the scope management knowledge area and the schedule management knowledge area. So that is why cost management knowledge area comes after scope and schedule, right? Because you need to know, if you want to estimate the cost of a project activity, you need to know how much work you're going to do, and you need to know the amount of time it will take. Now, once you know these two, you will be able to successfully estimate the activity's cost. So as part of estimate costs process, you are going to estimate the cost for every single project activity. So the next process is the determine budget process. And do you remember the schedule baseline or the scope baseline in their respective knowledge areas? This is the process. The determine budget is the process where you come up with a cost baseline. Now, what is a cost baseline? We will look at it as we move on further in this slide. Now, in the previous slide, we talked about how you need to estimate every single project activity. Once you have the estimate for all the project activities, you need to add them up. And once you add them up, you will have a figure which is known as a cost baseline. You will have the cost of your project, and that is going to be your cost baseline. Now, how is it going to be useful? How is this number going to be useful? Well, first of all, this is the amount that you are going to request from the management to complete your project. That's the important thing, right? That's one of the most important things. But then the other important thing is, as you progress, as your project progresses, you need to compare the expenditures of your project with the baseline budget that you had. Right now, some project managers would do it once a month, some project managers would do it every week, some project managers would do it at every important project milestone, but they will see how much money they have spent on the project versus this baseline figure, right, where they were supposed to be. And this is why this baseline, the cost baseline, becomes so important. In fact, we will look at this in more details in the next slide when we talk about the process that comes in from the monitoring and controlling process group. So what are we waiting for? Let's go there. Control costs is actually the only process in the cost management knowledge area which belongs to the monitoring and controlling process group. This is the final process in the cost management knowledge area. And just like every other usual monitoring and controlling processes that you would see across different knowledge areas, control costs is where you will track your actual work and you're going to compare it against the baseline. Something that I spoke of in the previous slide, the last point in my previous slide, where I said that some project managers would do this comparison every week, some project managers would do this comparison every month, some would do it at every single important project milestone. But you have to do this. Bottom line, you do this so that you make sure that if you need to make any adjustments, why would you need to make any adjustments? If you're overshooting the cost, right, then you need to make adjustments. If your project is suffering from cost overrun, which most projects do, in my personal experience, by the way, so what kind of adjustments do you need to make? That is something that you determine as part of the control costs process. Finally, you're basically in this process, you're basically comparing how you're doing versus how you thought you would do. And this is actually something that you can remember for most of the monitoring and controlling processes, the usual monitoring and controlling processes that start with the word control. So if it is talking about costs, then you would basically compare how you're doing in terms of costs versus how you thought you would do. right? If it talks about something else, let's say the process is about controlling control let's say control scope, so that is where you would compare how you're doing in terms of the scope, the project scope, versus how you thought you would do, right? So I hope this is something which makes some sense to you, and it is helpful for you to remember what the usual monitoring and controlling processes do, and specifically the processes that start with the word control. So that is all that we had in this video. Do hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon if you haven't done so already. Also, don't forget to check out the website pmclounge.com, your number one free PMP resource with over 400 articles on project management there. That is definitely your number one place to go for PMP preparation. Thank you.